Hey guys, how's it going? It is your boy, Manga Man Drew, and I'm here to do my manga review for One Piece Manga Chapter 1055. And yeah, this is going to be a very interesting and amazing chapter for One Piece because we get a little bit of information in this chapter that pertains to, I don't know, potentially what happened in the Void Century with the involvement of Wano Kuni in a big reveal of what Wano Kuni is or what Wano Kuni was. And we're going to get to that in a little bit, but there's a few things that I want to talk about first. For instance, when it comes to this chapter, it seems to start off with a different cover, not necessarily a color page or a cover page, but it seems to be like a tie-in to Film Red. Not only do we have like a poster of Film Red with like Uta, Luffy, and Shanks on the cover as a color page, as well as on the front of Shonen Jump, but that there's just this small page before the actual chapter begins that actually has the title of the chapter titled New Age on it, where most likely than not is sort of kind of like a tie-in build-up to basically tie what's happening with Uta with the actual Red story. And from what it seems to be going on with this, that this is going to be in 3 issues of the One Piece chapter. So in 1055, 1056, and 1057, we're going to have something Uta related in the cover, sort of like a mini cover story that is tying into Film Red, which will be coming out in Japan very recently and will be coming out around the world in around the fall time. So that's something to look forward to. And from what we've seen with this part of the chapter, the first thing that is being shown to us, that she hears something going on and that it just inspires her to begin writing a song that is going to be her magnum opus. So it's going to be very cool how this may tie into the story of Film Red and potentially how Uta ties into the canon of the story, because there's something in this chapter that may canify or canonify or put her in the canon of One Piece. So that is something that I want to talk about first. But with that, let's dive into the chapter proper. And when it comes to this chapter, it can be broken up into like 2 major parts. The fight between the samurai and Green Bull, as well as Momonosuke, and the second part involving Sukiyaki as well as Robin going down and exploring the depths of Wano. So for the first part of this chapter, we are primarily focusing on the fight. As everyone in the capital is pretty much unaware of what's going on, we get to see that Momonosuke is trying to fight against Green Bull on his own. And this gives a little bit of confirmation of what's going to be happening with Yamato, because as Yamato is begging Momonosuke for them to help in this fight, and as we see that another character, specifically we get to see Raizo getting taken down, that he has fire scrolls, which you would think would be very effective against a man made of wood, but unfortunately Green Bull was prepared for that fire strat, so he immediately has a way of defending against the fire, as well as stabbing into Raizo, draining him of his liquid essence. And while this is all happening, Yamato is begging Momonosuke to allow them to fight, and Momonosuke says no. And this is very interesting for why he gives his response, why Yamato cannot help in this situation. And Momonosuke's explanation, or Momonosuke's reasoning, is that he doesn't want anyone to fight the battles of Wano Kuni. If he is unable to actually fight against these threats, then why or how can he rely on people that are about to leave? And this is confirming that Yamato is going to be leaving Wano Kuni because that is what they want to do, which heavily implies that they are going to be joining the Straw Hat Pirates. So pretty much what is going on is that the reasoning why we have this fight is just to show why Momonosuke is the Shogun and what he needs to do as the Shogun, which is that he needs to take care and protect Wano by himself, because if he's unable to do it, then no one will be able to, because the people who protected Wano, aka the Straw Hat Pirates and everyone there, will be gone. And if they leave and they're the ones protecting Wano Kuni, then Wano Kuni is just going to fall to all of the other enemies across the world. So Momonosuke himself has to show that he has the capability and the power and the strength to protect his nation, which is why he's doing it on his own, which leads to some very interesting characterization and character development for Momonosuke in this chapter, which also leads to him being able to finally release his Boro breath as he fires off Boro breath after Boro breath at this green bull and does heavy damage to him, more damage than any of the other samurai were able to do to Green Bull. So this is something interesting that we're seeing with Momonosuke, and I'm really enjoying this characterization as well. And we even get to see Green Bull do some retorting, trying to say that, oh yeah, the only reasoning why I'm here is because Kaido was defeated, and if Kaido was still here, then I wouldn't be here, just emphasizing how much the admirals, or at least a single admiral, cannot really match up one for one with a Yonko, which is going to fan the flames of the fandom. But yeah, we get an explanation for why he is here, and it kind of makes sense. Like, Wano is like a keystone area for the world government, so of course they would try to take over it as soon as possible, but they've been unable to do it due to the barriers that were preventing them from doing so, which would include the barriers of the walls of Wano, as well as the fact that it was controlled by the Yonko Kaido. And speaking of Wano Kuni itself, the land surrounding the country, that is something that is brought up in pretty much like the second part of this chapter, which primarily involves Sukiyaki, as well as Law, as well as Robin, exploring the depths of Wano Kuni, where it is revealed to us that when it comes to Wano Kuni, as we know it right now, that 800 years ago, it was very different. And 800 years is a very important date because that is around the time where the Void Century is, meaning that when it comes to the explanation that Sukiyaki gives to both Robin as well as Law, and by the way, there's some very fun interactions between Robin and Law in this chapter that I really loved. But pretty much what Sukiyaki explains to them is that Wano Kuni used to be a lot bigger, and that the actual Wano Kuni of old used to be at the bottom of Mount Fuji, as we do get to see sort of kind of a double page spread of what Wano used to be. It looks like a very older version of Wano, but it's pretty much the aesthetic of Wano that we see above the water, above where Mount Fuji is, or the tip of Mount Fuji. And he explains a little bit more in detail that during the 800 years in the past, the walls were built up. He doesn't know why, but because those walls are built up, they serve the purpose of being a barrier for Wano so that people can't get in. But because of that, it caused the rainwater to collect, pretty much making Wano Kuni a bowl, which means that they had to abandon the mainland area of Wano, and that over time, for some apparent reason, we still don't get an explanation for how they're like islands towards the higher part of Mount Fuji. They explain it as it being like a part of the tip of Mount Fuji, but as we see in some of these images, that's not necessarily the case. That can't really be the case because there's no way that those islands would be at the top of Mount Fuji, because as we saw in the past, that they just didn't exist up there in the first place. So I cannot say for exact reasoning why that may be the case. There may be some translation issues with this chapter, but overall, that's pretty much the explanation for it. And the explanation is that after the 800 years, this is what happened. We had to abandon Wano, and by them abandoning Wano at the base of Mount Fuji, they also had to abandon the load or the road poneglyph, and that it's actually at the bottom of Mount Fuji, which is why you have Law, Sukiyaki, as well as Robin actually descending deeper and deeper down Wano Kuni to actually find this road poneglyph, and that the only reason why Kaido had any way of accessing it, because Sukiyaki himself confirms that he never revealed that information to either Kaido or Orochi, is because of Jack being a fish man. And that is wild. Just think about that. Jack, one of the three commanders, the commander that has gotten completely and utterly destroyed time after time after time in this story, is the reasoning why Kaido had an image of the road poneglyph, and why they weren't able to find it anywhere on Wano, because it's technically below Wano, in the sea, underwater, and Jack is the only one that can breathe underwater. So Thank you, Oda, for giving freaking Jack something important for the story and for Wano after he's literally done basically nothing throughout this entire arc. Thank you, Oda, for that. That is amazing. But pretty much, yeah, that's the explanation. That is the major reveal in this chapter involving Wano Kuni. And the final reveal that we actually get is the fact that, yeah, because this is where Wano Kuni is, that they literally have to, for them to actually open the borders, have to literally break down these walls to do it. But by doing so, will leave Wano Kuni like defenseless. But by doing so, will also, in a way, release the weapon, the ancient weapon Pluton. Because from the explanation, Pluton is buried somewhere further beyond where Wano is, underneath all of that rainwater. So by breaking the barriers, it makes it easier to get to Pluton, which it makes breaking down or opening the borders a double-edged sword. Yes, sure, Wano would be more open to attacks from the outside world, but then they will be able to get access to an ancient weapon, Pluton. So that's something very interesting. This is going to be something that people are going to be discussing for a while. But yeah, that's pretty much the two parts of this chapter. And when it comes to the last part of this chapter, it involves, once again, with the fight between the Admiral Green Bull as well as the other samurai, but with a slight twist. And that the reasoning why Shanks is here is for the sole reason of scaring off Red Bull. Because after we saw Momonosuke doing his thing, trying to fight off against this Admiral, and actually failing miserably because his aim sucks horribly, even with his Boro breath, with Green Bull just coming out of the ground, regrowing himself because, you know, he is a forest man, he sees Conqueror's Haki in the air and is coming to a realization of, oh no, I know this Conqueror's Haki. Oh, this is Shanks. Oh no, this is Shanks. Oh, you're lucky that there's another Yonko here, because if there wasn't, I would have taken Luffy's head, but because Shanks is here, it's not that I can't defeat him. I obviously can, because I'm Green Bull. Obviously, I can defeat Shanks, but I'm just gonna leave for now. I'm just gonna leave for no reason. I'm just gonna dip. Yeah, that's pretty much how Red Bull. That's pretty much how Green Bull reacts in this instance, as he leaves Wano, with Shanks giving a very interesting and cool speech of like, yeah, I don't blame you for what you did, but I can't allow you to like destroy these kids' dreams after they've done this amazing thing and created this new era. So yeah, I'm a little bit mad that you're about to break this new era that was just created. So yeah, get out of here. That's pretty much the gist of what Shanks is saying. And as he is saying this, his Haki is just bellowing through the air, eventually scares off Green Bull. So now Wano Kuni is actually safe, and Green Bull served the purpose of bringing, you know, Shanks into the story, and then Shanks proceeds to leave again. I praise Oda for a lot of things, but this part of the chapter is probably the weakest part of this entire chapter, in that Green Bull doesn't serve that big of a purpose than just introducing Shanks into the story for Shanks to proceed to leave once again. But either way, I still think that we just needed to be introduced to Green Bull, so I'm glad that we're getting introduced to him now rather than later. So, and it also brings Shanks into the story. So even though this feels a little bit clumsy at times, I'm still very accepting of how it goes, especially when it comes to how the chapter actually ends, with both Jinbei, Sanji, Zoro, and Luffy realizing, oh, Green Bull's gone. Oh, guess we don't have to help them anymore. Yeah, Zoro even responds with, yeah, you know what? Momonosuke did very well, as you have Jinbei's like, yeah, and that Haki was pretty amazing. And then even Luffy's like, yeah, I don't know where it came from, but it seemed very familiar, as we see Shanks' ship leaving Wano Kuni. So yeah, it's very funny that they're sitting in the background, they were planning on intervening, and that they were so confident that, oh yeah, if they really just needed our help, yeah, we could have just jumped in and really helped them. And I think that if they did jump in, Green Bull would have died. He would have been decimated because it's like, oh yeah, you think that Shanks is terrifying because he's a Yonko? Freaking Luffy is also a Yonko, as well as you have literally his three strongest members who one of them also has Conqueror's Haki. Another one was literally a warlord of the sea. And then you literally have Sanji, who is a bioengineered weapon with skin harder than steel. Yeah, Green Bull was going to get decimated if they get involved. But yeah, it's very cool to see that even though Luffy doesn't recognize Shanks' Haki, he's like, oh yeah, that seems very familiar. Oh, by the way, they're safe, everything's good, and the chapter pretty much ends there. So, overall, really thought this was a really enjoyable chapter of One Piece. All I can say is that it was amazing. It was it could have been better. I feel as if there could have been a better reason for Green Bull to arrive to Wano. Now, don't get me wrong. Anyone or pretty much the reason why he comes to Wano makes sense. The fact that Luffy defeated Kaido and threw the world into terror, so taking him out immediately is like the plan, and that was kind of the plan that the world government had with like whoever stood out on top, that they were eventually going to take advantage of it and strike when the iron was hot. So it makes sense for them to send an admiral. Just, it didn't necessarily have to be Green Bull, but it's just by circumstance at this moment. Someone needed to come to Wano because of the fall of Kaido, and that Green Bull was just the person sent to do it. And either way, Shanks was going to come here because since he now wants to go after the One Piece, he would need to go to Wano eventually to get the road poneglyph. And that's something else that we got in this chapter. The confirmation of where the road poneglyph is, getting to see a more coherent connection to the Void Century through Wano, and an explanation for what it actually means to open up the borders and where Pluton can potentially be located. And it's going to be somewhere in Wano, further down in Wano, but it has to be done when the walls actually collapse, which would be when Wano Kuni is actually fully opened up. So there's a lot of stuff answered in this chapter, as well as a lot of things that you can ask a few more questions about. But overall, I still thought this was a very enjoyable chapter of One Piece, and hopefully you enjoyed this chapter as well as you enjoyed my review of this chapter. So let me ask you, are you looking forward to seeing more of Wano Kuni, or do you think that we're about to be leaving within the next few chapters? And do you think that we will eventually get to see what Pluton is, or if it's just going to be this big, vague mystery? Leave your thoughts down in the comments down below. Leave a like on the video if you liked it. And don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel for more content like this. Do all that cool jazz. And hopefully I'll be able to catch you in my next video. Goodbye!